feast your eyes on this, the worst van money can buy. Now, what is this, you may ask? And this is a 1993 Toyota Previa. But why is this the worst van money can buy? It's, you know, it drives, it goes, therefore it can't be that bad, right? And, you know, like, the bumper doesn't fall off if you look at it the wrong way. It's got decent-ish tire tread. It's, you know, it's got doors and windows. I mean, that's all you need, really. It's got 4 wheels. It doesn't have 4 hubcaps. It doesn't even have 3 matching hubcaps. It has 2 matching hubcaps. A different one that I found in it when I bought it. No hubcap on the front right. You know, it's got a cracked windshield. It's got, but I mean, that's not a terrible crack. I mean, it's a pretty big crack, but it's not, you know, really in the way of what you see when you're driving. It's like, you know, halfway decent-ish. It's got the junkyard tattoo, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is not original to this, as you can also see by the mismatched paint colors and the relatively poor panel gap. So let's talk a little bit about this. This has a 138 horsepower, 2.4 liter 4-cylinder. This is a mid-engine minivan, so the engine is about there. It's underneath the passenger seat. You get the coolant reservoir, an oil reservoir. We'll talk about that in a second, because that is just extra oil that the car has. Wiper fluid reservoir, battery, some kind of an air filter, some kind of an intake here, power steering fluid, and brake fluid. So it's a pretty in the brake master cylinder. Now this car does not have ABS, which is a slight, you know, safety concern with modern cars. And that's not the only safety concern. This thing is definitely behind the times in terms of safety equipment. It has count 'em, one single airbag, and it's this one right here. If you're a passenger in the car, what do you get? You get the brain bucket, so you can put your brain back in when it falls out. It's, you know, perfectly safe. It also has no carpet, but I did that because this car was a smoker car for 30 years. Ugh. And it was bad. It was so bad. You would open the door and you would just get flash banged by this horrible, awful stank. The cup holders are broken. I mean, they work, but they don't close. I threw away the ashtray, which is supposed to go in here because smoker car for 30 years. I tried to clean it. I wish I had a video of it. It was so unbelievably foul. It was just disgusting, and it was also kind of damaged. It's really gross. This car is gross, right? This thing is nasty. That's seat crumbs from the original seat. So this is the seat that I put in. And it also has this goofy flip down armor. I mean, both seats have that, but you have to pull this lever up to move the armrest down, but then to pull it up, you can just pull it up. However, it just won't go down unless you pull the release. I mean, it works okay. It's not broken after, 30 years, and neither is this one. I do have a new seat belt for the passenger side because, that's not really what you want to see. So yeah, we'll be installing this at some point. And I have a club because this car has absolutely no steering wheel lock whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. That was key out of the ignition, by the way, and ignition off. Any normal car would have a steering wheel lock, and this doesn't, so that's good. It has an original radio, which is pretty bad, and every single speaker is blown. Every single one, you heard that right, every single speaker, I believe they're original. And this is the best part. So, you did see that thumbnail correctly. It has almost 400,000 miles. It has 369,207 miles. And it does run, you'll see in a second, and it does drive, and it's also a manual, which makes it a little more interesting, and is the reason I bought this. I wanted to learn how to drive stick. I'd never had the opportunity to do so before, and so I went looking on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist for the cheapest manual that I could find. And this was back in March of 2024. and this was the cheapest manual. This car was $1,300, and it's, you know, the dorky egg van. And I mean, you know, I have no idea why this car could have been $1,300. Honestly, it wasn't even like that great of a deal. But at the time, it was okay, and it was the cheapest manual. And I had the money, so I bought it. The AC doesn't work. It's a 93 that was built in May. And that means that it is 1 month, one single month, too old to have an R134A system. Now, if you're not familiar, there are different types of refrigerant that a car's AC system can use. From May of 1993 and earlier, so in the Previa's case, 91 to May of 93, this was built in May of 93, they used an R12 refrigerant AC system. R12 is bad for the environment and, you know, the ozone layer and all of that. When it was, you know, released. So you can't buy R12 anymore. They don't make it. You can't buy it. No modern cars used it. I mean, I don't consider this modern because it's, you know, 93. No new cars use it. And then there's R134A, which is the refrigerant type that followed R12, which anything newer than this, if this were 1 month newer, it would have an R134A system. You can still buy R134A, you can still use it totally fine, there's no, you know, questions or concerns about that. Well, I mean, it's refrigerant for an AC system, so there's a little bit of environmental concern there, but way less than R12. But you can't just jam R134A into an R12 system, or maybe you can. We're gonna do some testing with that as well. We're gonna mess with that. There will be a video on that at some point. Yeah, so no AC. Well, the AC has AC, it just doesn't work. The heat works, which is nice in, you know, in the winters here. So yeah, it's a 5-speed manual, and I don't have any shifter boot on it. The shifter boot is back there because it's in absolutely, let me grab it over here, absolutely abhorrent condition. It's in such bad shape, and it's absolutely disgusting too. I mean, this thing is foul. So what we're gonna try to do at some point is recreate this. I mean, we'll remove the leather here from this base, and then we'll clean up all of this junk, and we're gonna try to restitch something to replace this. So we'll see how that goes. It's got like a cigarette burn right there, and it's just got wear holes just all the way up in here. It's pretty bad, which is why it lives back there. And the other reason it lives back there is because I had to replace that little shifter bushing, but unfortunately you can't just replace that. There will also be a separate video on that. And all of the stuff I've had to do to this car. Let's talk about that weird oil system for a second. So, the car has an oil level sensor, and it actually has an oil level light as well. So you see that there. If the oil level is too low, it will send the signal to the computer, which will activate a pump, which pulls oil out of that goofy little reservoir and dumps it into the sump. It's ridiculous, but it actually works. Like, this one it's 30 years old. I don't think it's ever been serviced because it looks, you know, like the motor system. And I changed the oil in that reservoir by cycling the key on with the sump empty. This car should suck. Like, it has cruise. The cruise works. It actually works. It's not great, but it works. And it runs, and it drives. It's just bad, and gross, and old, and very, very high mileage. I mean, it's really not too bad, all things considered. I really thought this car would be a lot worse. This is a Previa DX, which is the lower trim level, but it does have a couple of options. So it has the power package, meaning that it has power windows, and power locks right here, and power mirrors. Now, you might be saying, oh, why is there only one door on this side? And to answer that question, the other side is completely just side of car, It's completely solid. There's nothing else to it. So that's a little bit interesting. It has this weird little compartment down here too, which is gross because I haven't cleaned it out. And it is very loud in here after I took the carpet out. That carpet was doing heavy lifting for keeping the noise down. I mean, it was still loud before, but it's so much worse now. It's really bad. It's really, really, really loud in here. If only that button did, you know, something else instead of making the speakers more distorted. It's got this factory little dingusy thing back here for blowing air back further. But right, so this is a Previa DX. Now, the Previas came with 2 transmission options. They came with a 4-speed automatic and then a 5-speed manual. Typically, the 5-speed manual is more desirable because it's more rare, and people like these. They're really robust transmissions. I mean, you know, this thing's got almost 400,000 miles on it, so it's a pretty robust transmission, and so people like these manuals a lot. But then there are 2 other big options that people seek out. They have all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. Okay, people want all-wheel drive a lot. Rear-wheel drive is the base, which this one is, unfortunately. Although it does make it more fun. You can get her going around corners, even though the little 2.4 liter 4-cylinder only makes 138 horsepower. It's pretty sad. It's pretty anemic and pretty slow. And then there are 2 engine configurations. Oh, there's only 1 engine, but there are 2 intake configurations. There's naturally aspirated and supercharged. So the supercharged one, I believe, gave this car 161 horsepower. So it definitely helped a little bit, but it hurt fuel economy, and I'm not sure how reliable they are. I mean, they're decently reliable because it's a mid-90s Toyota. So this car is a naturally aspirated rear-wheel drive 5-speed manual, which is probably the most, well, second most fun configuration. The most fun configuration would be if this had a supercharger, which I could do, but I do like that this van actually gets, like, it gets about 22 miles per gallon based on the math at the pump. We're going to have a fuel efficiency battle to the death between all of the cars of the fleet after they've all been introduced. There's more. There are more to come. But we're gonna have a battle to the death of fuel economy and see which one. Well, I mean, the Prius will win because it's a hybrid, but you know, we're gonna have a battle for second place, really, and see who comes out on top. This car is bad. Point being, it's needed some repairs and some work. By some absolute miracle, it does actually run and drive. Not great, mind you. There's a pretty nasty clunk from the front right. Well, you'll see that in a second, or hear it rather. It also has self-closing doors. I'm not sure why this is a thing, and I don't think it's designed this way, but the doors just fall inwards, and both front doors do this. I don't know why, and they also sometimes don't close all the way, but they are sort of auto-closing doors, I guess. It also had a lot of damage right there, which is why it's got some junkyard panels. I'll throw some pictures up here. He was in pretty bad shape when I bought him. This poor egg. It also has some other miscellaneous body damage, like this anomalous scrape here, and this sort of like gash looking thing in the paint. It's not, this area is pretty bad and could use a little bit of touch-up work. And it's also got that scrape there. And it's got a little bit of a dent on the Previa badge. And by a little bit of a dent, I mean, oh, you know, it's like the size of my hand. It's a pretty good wall up there. It leaks a lot of oil. Which is something we'll also have to resolve at some point. I think it's just a valve cover gasket, but it is pretty gross under there. Before we give her a start, we're gonna take a look at the sliding van door because the action is oh so nice. Now this handle I had to replace because the original one was just broken off, which is a relatively common issue on these Previas. So you open it, you know, and it kind of opens, and you gotta give her a fair bit. It also isn't the tightest thing on the planet. There's a bit of just a little wiggle there, but I mean it goes back, and it's you know, like, fine. It could probably use a little bit of maintenance on the track, It's kind of gross in there. In order to close the sliding door, you really gotta give her. Like, you can't just, oh, I'm gonna gingerly close the door. Because it does not latch all the way at all. So, you gotta really, you gotta open it. You gotta open it all the way to the back. And you gotta really give her, or else it just won't close. Let's give her a start. We're gonna make sure it's in neutral. We're gonna foot on the clutch, key in the ignition, and we're gonna it sounds like a tractor. It's just really bad. It just sounds like crap. It's so bad. And if we give her a crisp, this thing sucks. Now we're gonna do the 0 to 60 test. And that's where this car is going to lose and fail and bomb and gag and fail and die. Because it is dog slow. It's so bad. And another really funny thing about this car that you may have, wondered, there's no foot operated parking brake. There's nothing here. So where's the handbrake? It's gotta have one, right? It does. It's just down here for some reason. So I mean, it works kind of ish, a little bit. But it's over here, which I've never seen before. And another thing about driving this car, the turn radius is absolutely abysmal. It's so bad. It's like, the turn radius is like actually comically bad. It is so wide. Like, you do not, unlike with the Prius, you do not just go. You don't just go. I will almost hit that pole there. You don't just go. This car freaking sucks for handling. It is so unbelievably bad. And we're gonna try and get that clunk here. Oh, yeah, there it was. So I was about to get started on the 0 to 60 test, but there's something in the rear that does not sound very happy. It sounds a little grindy. We're still gonna do the 0 to 60 test. But only time will tell if that was a terrible idea. Alright, 0 to 60 run. Number 1. Oh shit. Let's see if it'll happen again. Oh yeah, that is the clunk that I was talking about. Oh, it is thick. My ugly egg. Go. The grinding sound is getting a little louder. Oh, we're almost home. Just live until then. It hasn't even been 100 miles since the last fix. It has not even been 100 miles. It's been 100 miles. It hasn't even been 100 miles. Like, not even close. I've driven this to town once since it last broke. Once! One time! And he's dead again. I can't believe it. I can totally believe it. This is why you don't buy the worst van that money can buy, because you get the car that's always broken. I guess we'll be tearing into that at some point soon. Good night, my sweet prince.